All right, so today we're going to dive into a topic that's been on a lot of people's minds, I think,
Hmm.
especially if you've got kids or you're thinking about going back to school yourself.
Yeah.
That's the cost of college
Right.
and why it seems like it's just going up and up and up.
It's crazy.
We've got a bunch of different sources here, articles and reports and things to try to get a better handle on
Yeah,
what's really going on.
for sure.
So hopefully by the end of this, we'll all have a better understanding of, what's driving these prices.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, one of the things that jumped out right away was that it seems like a lot of the cost increases are tied to how colleges are actually spending their money.
Right.
And specifically, it seems like there's been a pretty big jump in what they're spending on administration.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that, especially in the last, I'd say maybe 10 years or so.
Yeah.
One of the studies we have here shows that spending on administration at public universities has actually increased way more than spending on like actual teaching.
So it's not just about professor salaries or anything.
It's not just that.
It's like a whole other layer of.
Yeah, a whole other layer of people.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because,
What are they all doing?
well, you've got like obviously you need people to run the university,
Yeah.
but then there's all these like different departments and offices and it just seems like it's grown a lot.
Right.
And then on top of that, they're also spending a ton of money on facilities and amenities.
Right. All the fancy new dorms and.
The gyms,
Yeah.
the climbing walls.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember when I was in college, the dorms were pretty basic.
Yeah.
And the gym was like,
A little weight room
yeah,
in
exactly.
the basement.
Now it's like they're competing with like luxury apartment complexes.
It's true.
Yeah.
They're trying to attract students with all these perks, and it definitely adds to the cost.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, students are looking at those things when they're deciding where to go. But it's also like, who's paying for all of this?
Right. And that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it seems like part of the problem is that public funding for higher education has been going down.
Really?
Yeah, especially in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the government's not chipping in as much, the universities have to find that money somewhere else.
And that somewhere else is tuition.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So it's like this kind of double whammy. They're spending more and they're getting less from the government.
Right.
And then on top of that, you've got the whole student loan situation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because it seems like the easy availability of loans has maybe made it easier for colleges to raise tuition.
Because people can just borrow more.
Exactly.
Hmm.
They figure, oh, well, if students can just take out bigger loans, then we can charge more.
Right.
And so it's kind of created this cycle where tuition keeps going up and debt keeps going up.
Yeah, and it's not just the U.S., right? I mean, this is happening all over the world.
It is, yeah.
It's a global trend.
It's a global trend.
So it's not like we can just point the finger at one country or one system or anything.
Right. It's more complex than that.
Yeah, so, okay, we've talked about all the reasons why tuition might be going up, but is there any argument that maybe some of this is actually a good thing?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are definitely some people who would say that you get what you pay for,
Okay.
right? So the idea is that if you're paying more for tuition, maybe you're getting better professors,
More research,
more research,
better facilities.
better student services, the whole package.
Right.
And then you also have to factor in just general inflation.
Yeah, everything's getting more expensive.
Exactly. So it's not just colleges,
Yeah.
right? It's like food and housing and everything else.
Right.
So some of the tuition increases are probably just reflecting that,
And then there's also financial aid and scholarships.
right? Which can make a huge difference for a lot of students.
So even if the sticker price looks scary.
Yeah, you might not actually end up paying that much. So it's definitely important to factor that in.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
So what are some of the big questions that we should be thinking about?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is, what's the role of the government?
Okay.
Like, how much should they be funding public universities?
Right.
Because if they cut back too much, then it really puts the burden on students and families.
Right.
And then there's also the question of how universities are spending their money.
Yeah, like, is all this spending on administration really necessary?
Right. Or could some of that money be better spent on teaching and research?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the whole student loan issue.
Yeah.
Like, are there ways to make loans more affordable?
Or ways to make sure that people aren't taking on too much debt.
Exactly. Because right now in the U.S., Student loan debt is over $1.7 trillion.
That's insane.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And it's having a real impact on people's lives.
So, okay, we've talked about the US, but what about other countries? Are there any other models out there that we could learn from?
Yeah, I mean, some countries have taken a very different approach.
Like,
Like in some of the Nordic countries,
okay.
like Norway and Sweden,
Yeah.
higher education is basically free.
Wow.
It's funded through taxes.
Oh, okay.
So it's seen as like a public good
Yeah.
that everyone should have access to.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
And it's not just public universities, right? Even some private universities in the US are trying to make things more affordable.
Yeah, they're offering big financial aid packages.
Okay.
So even though their tuition might be high on paper,
Yeah.
a lot of students are actually paying a lot less.
Interesting.
So there are definitely different ways to approach this.
Right. So just to recap, it sounds like the main drivers of high college costs are things like administrative bloat,
Uh-huh.
reduced public funding,
Yeah.
the availability of student loans.
And the competition among universities.
Right.
And then you've also got those other factors like investments and quality and inflation and all that.
Right. It's complex.
Yeah, it's not simple.
So for everyone listening, I guess the big question is, what do you think would make the biggest difference?
Yes.
If you could change one thing about the system to make college more affordable, what would it be?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's something to think about.
Food for thought.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been fun.
See you next time.